Let there be light, and there was light. Okay, so we are carrying on with the theme of Mother Eve. Of course, learning how to really embrace the teachings that are necessary in what is going to make us embrace the words of the said God. Let us make man in our image after our likeness. So if you're new to this channel, I am Crime Queen, and this is where we are having fun with words and numbers, numerology to be precise. Okay, so we have been delving in the Bible of the King James Version of the Holy Bible. This is where we learn about how we have been conditioned, and of course this is how we learn, where we have also discovered that we were not of the thinking, or we are no longer of the thinking that we are the original people who have ever been on this earth, but we are a people who have derived from some catastrophic or event, or an exodus, or whatever it was, but we are not the first. Certainly we also have discovered that we are the result of an experiment, and that we were of of six women. And also we have, I'm trying to get all my thoughts together because I really had not decided to go on this path, but I'm going with spirit. So there were 14 Eves. We have also learned that there were 14 Eves. So where we think that it was just Eve, one Eve, so there is the mother of mothers, and Eve is the mother of mothers. And so it also seemed that when the story we learn about Adam and Eve, it would be another Eve like a daughter, and the mother is saying, remember that I have given you all things, all fruit bearing seed that have its seed, or every fruit that have its seed in it. So it's like Mother Eve, the mother of mothers, had given contracts, we could say, to other gods, and the other gods, of course, because the said God, which is Mother Eve, which is the waters, Satan, Saturn, and all these life-giving elements that we are. So Mother Eve as being the embodiment of 14 gods that we have discovered in the Bible as well. So now I am now making the reference of there were 14 Eves and 14 gods we are talking about. It'd be interesting to see if the 14 gods, I believe, are really on the personification of female as well, because it again, because Mother Eve, in communicating and having that dialogue, is that there were 14 Eves. So we have 14 gods. I am now just thinking about that. It's so much information to really make sense of, because when we have learned something one way and then we are getting other in other intelligences or other ways of looking at things, it takes a kind of undoing and reprogramming, if you like, to really ascertain the new information that we have got. So now I am believing that the 14 gods had been the on the female, 14 female, which would be which makes sense to some extent, that because they would be given life forms. Okay, so not to rest too much on that aspect, but of course we also know that we are also approaching the the end of the seventh cycle. A seventh cycle meaning the 7,000 years. So I got this information through meditation and dialogue with Mother Eve. So we are now ending this 7,000 year cycle, and we are moving into an eighth cycle. And of course this eighth cycle, and I'm not sure whether cycles in top or cycles in that 8th cycle, but we are going to have a 7-year cycle here. We are moving into a 7-year cycle. This 7-year cycle, I believe, is what is going to be this set, what sets the a certain people in motion. And I am now beginning to wonder whether this 144,000 people that have been spoken of, because I had communicate that with Mother Eve, is that really literally 144,000? And yes, the answer was yes. And I found it very strange as well. I thought it was more of a metaphor, but according to Mother Eve, it is so. And it's also that we are preparing to, as we are preparing to move into this 5th and 8th dimension. So not altogether sure whether this is a separate set of people who are moving into that dimension, and then we have other people who are in another circle, if you like, or moving into the 5th, 8th dimension. It's funny that I am saying the 5th and 8th dimension, meaning I'm not making mention of the 6th or 7th dimension, because Mother Eve have showed us that how the dimensions, they seem to encapsulate one another in this sense, because we have the 8th hair and the 8 is in the mouth, which is number 5. So basically we are talking about 2 circles. So the 8th, of course, is the number or symbol of infinity, which is a hole. So you can imagine like a rubber band being twisted, but it still is whole. And of course we have 5, which is the mouth. Of course, there's a shape to it, but it's still whole, literally a whole. And with that as well, we could see the correlation right there with number 8 and number 5, which has been like this for quite some time, but it's all about Mother Eve having ate of the fruit of knowledge, or the fruit of good and evil. So there we see that is what the whole story is about. It's about the 5th and 8th dimension right here. Now what we do understand as well so far is that the process is that of the Kundalini, or activation, or opening the 3rd eye. This is of course there are other terms for it as well, and basically, so we have the pineal gland, or activate, or 3rd eye, or Kundalini. Of course we are talking about the 3rd eye is really hair, but when we speak of the Kundalini, it's really activating and clearing the chakras. The chakras are the body's 7 points of we could say that they are separate, they are separate levels, and they seem to have demarcation of knots. We could say knots, because in my experience is that as if a knot would have to be undone so that the Kundalini rise, which is the serum that gets activated. It's the same serum of when one of the sexual juice, let's put it this way, is the same serum that takes rise and goes through these different chakras. So we have the 7 chakras in the body, which I will do a presentation on those on another stage. But we have the heart chakra, which is the 4th chakra, and so and above that, of course, we have the 3. And so this is the 3rd eye and the crown these are the chakras that will help us to be illuminated, that when they are activated, we become illuminated. When we become illuminated, this is where we see beauty far beyond that which we were able to see or recognize. We see beauty in a stone. Having said that, I have an array of stones right here on my computer, and we see I have even, it may seem to surprise you, but I have got a little piece of wood here, and this little piece of wood, it looks like a city to me. So I see I see beauty in all things, and it's that we are able to open our eyes to what is, and there we see that there is much more than we saw before. All right, so basically really just wanting to give you a little intro really on on this channel in case you're new to this channel. We also do our presentations based on the, as I say, the scriptures, but around the sacrifice of the said Jesus Christ. I say said Jesus Christ. I will want to speak a little bit more about that, because now I would want to not have repeat Jesus in the same Christ spirit, because I believe that they are very different, and so they have been perhaps put together in a way that has been construed to just add confusion. So these are things that I really want to explore. Another thing is that I also want to explore the some of the scriptures that we have learned. We feel that has been so factual, but according to Mother Eve, that they are not. So basically the story of Adam and Eve in that sense, as we know it, is not factual that way, but it has been served to teaching us how Mother Eve applies to us in our lives. So that's one other factor. Another thing is that the Exodus, as we have known it to be, as in Genesis, or that the children of Israel, and there's about Pharaoh, and of course that has been implemented with Joseph as well. So the story of Abraham is true or factual according to Mother Eve, but Moses with the Ten Commandments, and as we know it, had not been the way we have been taught, so that's not factual. The story of Christ and all of the New Testament, in fact, according to Mother Eve, is not factual. So, but these are, there have been great wisdom, of course. We could say, well, yes, it has been a great deal of wisdom in the teachings, and we can take the opportunity to look at the wisdom that lies in those scriptures and see how they can serve us. By that we will know it's no wonder we have become very confused as a people, because we had not known for sure what was factual and what wasn't. So anyway, I just thought I would give a little bit on this subject. And so I also, as I say, I have touched upon Abraham and Sarah in the past, and seen there's much wisdom in the stories as well, and Job, which I very much love. So do join me again as we go on, as we move on. I want to unpack some of the scripture verses or stories, for instance, and using numerology to help us make better sense of those stories and how they can impact our lives to become better versions and expressions of who we truly are. And with that I say, let there be light, and there was light. Okay.